On December 11th, 1869, Chauncey Millard came up through this community and committed a number of crimes for which he was executed here in Utah Territory. Now, he was a bushwhacker. He left home in what we think might be Tennessee or somewhere in the southeast, and he made his way to Texas because apparently his father was abusive. In fact, when authorities were asking him what his name was, he said, "Call me Millard," because that was my mother's last name. So we didn't even want to be associated with his father, and we don't know who he is, or if he was even 18 at his time of execution. So he went down to Texas and he started working for a guy there, and the guy in Texas was, it was an apprenticeship, but apparently he was abusive and he expected way too much of Chauncey. So Chauncey killed his boss and then became a bushwhacker, killing Confederates and Union men alike. Made no difference to him so long as he could pilfer their bodies. And he made his way out by hopping trains to Utah, and we don't really know how many people he killed, although he said it was 8 by his reckoning, when he came up to Cedar Fort. Now at the time, this part of Utah was filled with miners, prospectors, army men who were left after the Civil War. They were kind of occupying the territory, trying to make sure that no rebellion happened, because Washington, D.C. was still very concerned about the Mormons. And so he sees these two guys and he figures, you've got money, and he shoots one of them and injures his brother. And at that point, he runs over the community and crosses a bridge where he sees a sheep herder. And he says, you got all these sheep out here. You ever thinking of getting any cows? And the guy says, yeah. And Chauncey says, well, you got any money to pay for those cows? And apparently the guy said, no, not really. I'm planning on trading some of my sheep. And Chauncey said that saved the guy's life. He would have killed him otherwise if he said, yeah, I've got a little money saved up. And then he also remarked, after being caught, you can rest assured that the guy who survived after I killed his friend, he's totally immune from death because I've shot him 5 times in the torso. So he said, I'll just take a nap here. He'd been captured by Porter Rockwell and a small posse of people. He figured that they would string him up from the nearest tree. And he woke up a couple hours later and said, well, I'll be damned. You didn't kill me? You might as well have. So after a little while, they did execute him, and the doctor approached him and said, if you trade your body for a pound of candy, it'll go to medical use and you can get the candy. It's not like you've got any family to give money to. And Chauncey says, sure. And apparently he goes to the firing squad, ravenously eating his candies. And they take his body and they boil it in lye, but they leave it in there for a little bit too long, and the bones dissolve. But the doctor, thinking quickly, reaches in there and grabs a hunk of his flesh, and he tans the skin and uses it to wrap his surgical implements. And this would last up until modern day. Actually, it's at the museum in Lehi, just north of Lake Utah. And Chauncey also had 2 pistols. When he was captured around Cedar Valley, he went to go hide these by throwing them in the well. A Remington .44 caliber and a Colt 3rd model revolver, a Dragoon Army Colt. Both of these were found in the well. And the doctor's name, who took his skin, was Dr. Don Carlos Roberts. And apparently, when Chauncey Millard was executed, he was still voraciously eating the pound of candy that he was given. And so they took to calling Chauncey the Candyman. And it's interesting to see here that he was tattooed. And I wonder what this tattoo means.